They're trying to keep you from preparing to your full potential. And it's just going to keep going this way until we find out that we actually need to rely on our preparedness. And what do I mean by that? Well, new regulations are being put out all of the time by these federal entities that are trying to stifle your ability to be as prepared as possible. And it's becoming an issue because most people can't keep up with all these new regulations or are just completely unaware of them. But there's a reason for why they're doing this. And it's not just to keep you from being prepared, it's also to eventually make an example out of you. Now, just to let you all know, Midway USA is the biggest supporter of the channel, and I do thank them very much for letting me get as prepared as I can when it comes to some of the things that we're discussing in this video. And what I mean by that is things that might require some of these skills or some of these pieces of equipment that allow us to survive for longer, depending on the situation. So big thanks to Midway USA. First things first, new regulations were just put out by the ATF regarding things like smoke grenades. And this was actually really well covered by Mr. Guns and Gear. So I'll go ahead and put a link up to his video, which I think will be up here, maybe up here, who knows? But either way, he did a really good job of letting you know exactly what they're trying to do there. Now, a lot of these companies that make these smoke grenades are actually coming out and saying that they can still continue to do business as usual, in general at least, which is good for now, but how long will that window of opportunity be open? So that's something you definitely need to consider if smoke grenades or things of that nature are on your list of must-haves. And the reason you might want something like this, right, is in order to use it in an escape and evasion situation where you want to cover your tracks or cover the ability for someone else to see you as you're moving from one safe location to another, or whatever else it is that you might need to use these for. But of course, they can be used as markers and things of that nature as well. But the ATF doesn't want you to have them anymore. And it's being put out there because they're a fire hazard or because it can be used against law enforcement, but of course, it can be used against law enforcement. It can be used against anybody who might be trying to come after you that maybe should or should not be coming after you. And these are all things that we all keep in mind here in the preparedness community to say, hey, I might need this. I hope I never do. But if I do, I want to be able to have the ability to have it. And with what just happened in Israel, you would think that the idea of civilians having access to things like smoke grenades that could allow them to safely escape from a dangerous situation, or at least move from one position to another without being easily targeted, would be valuable. But unfortunately, the government doesn't think so, right? And of course, nothing could ever happen here, but that's not why they're worried about this. And in fact, they're barely even worried about the fact that you can use these in the sense of being prepared against whatever might occur. Another example of this is actually the bill that's being introduced right now when it comes to a ban on bulk buying ammunition, right? They don't want you to be able to buy ammunition in bulk amounts because who knows what you could possibly do with all that ammunition. And that was introduced into Congress. Now, of course, we don't know how that bill is going to be pushed through or if anything's even going to happen with it. But the fact that they're trying to do that should tell you exactly what we're looking at. They don't want you to have large quantities of ammunition. Why would we want to have that? Well, to maintain training and proficiency during a scarcity or some type of a shortage scenario, and to have the amount of ammunition we might need throughout a long-term scenario where we no longer can resupply. But that doesn't matter to them. They just don't want you to be able to buy a lot of it, and they don't think that you should have a lot of it. And that's also an issue that's very similar to the smoke grenade situation because it directly applies to your ability to be as prepared as possible while dealing with some of the events that we're all concerned about here, right? And it's very cold. I'm starting to lose some of my speech skills, so I'm going to try to wrap this up here in a minute. But it's not just to keep you from being as prepared as possible. It's not just to keep you in line, and it's not just to keep you as soft of a target as possible, although all of those things are definitely part of the equation. I honestly think a lot of what's happening here is that they're just trying to create stackable charges to be used against you so that if you ever get caught doing something, they will find ways to add those charges to whatever it is you're being charged with, and then you'll have a much higher chance of getting a guilty verdict because of all these additional charges that are now being stacked against you. And this is a law enforcement technique that's used regularly, especially against people who are criminal in nature, but it will be used against you as well, especially in the sense of making an example of you. And because of that, we should be concerned. They don't necessarily want us to be as prepared as we can. And if we are going to be prepared to that level, they want to be able to throw you in jail and throw away the key, because that sets an example as to why this behavior is not acceptable. And it also lets everyone else know that if they're involved in the same activity, that they're going to go away too, right? So we're being targeted in multiple ways. And it's just like every other month, there's some new regulation they're trying to push upon you that a lot of people aren't going to be aware of, but might still be charged with at some point in time. Just like the pistol brace Pistol brace fiasco. I told you it's getting very cold. That whole situation is ridiculous, right? A lot of people never even knew it existed. And of course, right now we have a nationwide injunction on it, which is great, but it's for now. Who knows how that's eventually going to fully turn out. But either way, it's just one more thing they're trying to stack on top of the stackable deck against you. And that's exactly what they're going to do with all these new regulations too. It's never even going to be about one particular thing being the big problem. It's going to be about how many things can we layer on top of you in order to make you ineffective in the sense of in a courtroom, or ineffective in the sense of resisting any type of tyranny. And that's just where we're at. So I wanted to bring those things to your attention, let you know why you need to consider these things and not just be completely unaware of them. Maybe you don't even own a firearm, so you don't even consider some of this stuff, but you're prepared in the sense that you have a food supply and you have backup power and you want to be a self-sufficient human being. Okay, well, these steps that are being taken are still examples of them trying to remove your ability to maintain that autonomy. And that should be a concern of yours, even if you don't participate in these activities, which is why it's important to pay attention to. So like I said, I got a link for Mr. Guns and Gear's video in the video, but I'll put that in the description as well as in the pinned comment, just so you guys can check that out yourselves. And I just know we're going to see more of this because it seems like it just never ends at this point. So keep your eye out for more regulations to be coming your way, and do whatever you feel best. That's going to be it for Magic Prepper.